And both the MPP and the NDC are preparing for another major elections. But there are arguments right now, and we've been having it for quite a while, about the potential for a third force, either another political party other than the NDC or the MPP, or one individual who will stand as an independent candidate and maybe give the two a good run for their money. And in going into 2024, we're seeing a bit more of these individuals beginning to emerge. One of them is Dr. Sam Ankrah. He has been talking a lot about what he calls the second independence, and it is causing a fair bit of people to raise their eyebrows. He's going to be my guest today, and some of the things he's been focusing on about opportunities and investment for education, encouraging the youth to venture into entrepreneurial initiatives, but also challenging the status quo is something that he believes he represents quite strongly. But who is he? And why does he believe that Ghanaians are ready for an independent candidate? Are you ready for an independent candidate? We'll be speaking to him tonight just to get his thoughts, get something different from what we're used to, and see if he really stands up to scrutiny, since he's putting himself up as one of those who want to be voted for as president for this country. We're going to have a conversation with him here on PM Express as we build up into an election next year, where again we expect that the two main parties will dominate. But can anybody or any other political party stand in the way of the NDC and MPP and let one individual? Stay with me as we get to sit and have a conversation. And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express, always brought to you by Cherry Tree Properties. We develop spaces as though we are going to occupy them ourselves. Syntex tanks, it is strong, it is tough. Alumo bitters experience greatness in every moment, and the Ghana AIDS Commission. Let me tell you a bit more about Syntex tanks, because no matter your water needs, Syntex tank has it all. Syntex tanks is first to introduce a double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. We now introduce to you the customer specs order, which lets you order any color and size of preference. Syntex tanks gives you the longer warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. So whatever your water consumption, size of project or demand, choose Syntex tank. We have agents nationwide. Call them on 0244 335-168 or shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex tanks, air strong, air tough. Let's talk about the Cherry Tree Properties, because that's where you really want to go if you want buildings that are actually built, crafted with passion. You're thinking about buying a new home, talk to those who build with passion. They have Sloan Square. It's a new gated community development at Sakumono, developed by Cherry Tree Properties, a one-of-a-kind, well-planned luxury you've never experienced. You can call them on 0553-662-366, 0553-662-366. Cherry Tree Properties, sophistication and class. My guest in the studio is Dr. Sam Ankrah. He is an independent presidential hopeful, and he wants to challenge the two giants in the race. Doc, as I said, they are two giants. You see them as such?
Well, they're giants in the sense that these are huge political parties that had run the country for the last 30 years. So in that context, you're spot on.
Okay, so who really is Dr. Sam Ankrah, and why does he believe he can take on these giants, since you admit they are?
Dr. Sam Ankrah is just a very humble man. I grew up in Kumasi, went to Pokowari School, Form 1 to Aposis, left to England for my university education, and then left to work for some hedge funds, private equity companies, investment banking, capital raising. And then I decided to work on my own as an entrepreneur. And for the last 25, 30 years, I've been doing my own business. That's what got me to form African Investment Group, focused on raising capital, investments into different parts of the world, and advising clients to money where it's supposed to be.
Okay, so clearly you're good personally. Your personal circumstances is just fine. So why do you want to be president? Why do you want to take on all our problems?
That's a very interesting question, and a lot of people ask me this question. Why would you want to sacrifice your luxury? Why would you want to do this to get yourself into this position? But Evans, it gets to a point in time where some generation have to leave for the other. I'm somebody that had always been working on youth programs helping the deprived people, women. And basically, I look at situations and I believe that if things can be done better and it's not, I have a moral responsibility to get involved if I have the know-how to get in and help. So looking at all this, my passion for people and to help people to move away from where they are, to have a social upliftment, from social mobility, moving up in their lifestyle from where they are to where they're supposed to be. This passion that I have, that I think is drawing me to do this, this huge vision I've gotten myself into at the moment.
Okay, so fundamentally you want to change people's lives?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that is the motivation there is to change people's lives. That's what all politicians tell us. Are you a politician?
The challenge is I'm not a politician, to be honest. I'm not. I have never wanted to be a politician. I started by advising politicians from the outside, writing articles and documents to be able to help shape policy and do exactly what I could do if I wasn't in politics. However, most of these things that were done, I'm sure if you're very familiar with the Ghanaian newspapers or articles, you see that several articles I've written to help shape policy, to help change the lifestyles of the deprived people. Unfortunately, most of these things I've done over the years had not been able to get the effect of which that needs to. So I spoke to very key people and he goes, look, the kind of change that you are looking for, you are a change agent. These are very, very radical policies that you are looking to do. These are radical frames that you want to put in place, and you can't do it from the outside. It's only when you are in the helm of affairs. So why don't you just give it a go? Talk to Ghanaians, let them understand exactly what you stand for and what you can do to change their lifestyle. Because over the years, there have been several promises, there have been several attempts, but none of them had been able to yield to what this country needs. With all the resources available to us, with all the human capital that we have, with everything that we have, how intelligent Ghanaian young people are, and still we haven't been able to get to where we are. So it gets to a point where a generation has to sacrifice themselves for the next. And I believe that is a time that somebody has to. And like the Messiah, I'm sacrificing my life to stand up there, put myself onto bear, and fight for the deprived people of this nation.
What's the sacrifice precisely? I mean, this is public service you're going into. It pays quite well from everything else we've seen. A lot of the politicians that go in come out far wealthier than they went in. So where's the sacrifice?
Sacrifice in the sense that it doesn't pay a fraction of what I'm into at the moment. I see that as service to the nation, service to my fellow human beings. And talking about people getting into a getting wealthier, that's the issues that we need to address going forward, because I personally don't see it that way. I don't think politics should be a place for people to go and make money. And these are the key reasons why the right people have to get into the right positions to be able to turn things around. Because the mindset of why everybody's now rushing into politics just to make money for themselves and their immediate families is the reason why I'm getting into it, to make sure that this does not continue. The status quo is not an option anymore.
What is the status quo?
Well, the status quo is where everybody, I mean, these days, young people finish school, they want to rush to politics, they get to the radio stations. Like the former president would say, you have babies with sharp teeth, bringing down the system, insulting people just to get themselves known, rushing into politics just to make a living. I believe that is not the way forward. I believe the right, qualified, honorable people, that means well. Human beings mean well to them. These are the people that needs to get into decision making. Because if you are not selfless in your approach, and you are giving many, the tendency of falling to these sort of things is what will always happen. So if the people are not cut for the job, if you are not getting the right people who are supposed to be in position, but the mere fact that somebody helped in a political campaign, somebody was too loud in there, he spoke so well, somebody did this, and because of that you're making considerations and you are picking such materials to run a 75 billion economy or budget, you know you have problems. So we need to now sit back and say, what has been the challenges? What have been the issues? And from my point of view, I clearly see that many people are doing things that they're not supposed to do, and because of the political setup that we find ourselves in, they end up in those positions, making decisions, and it's not helping the nation.
You said political setup. That's the same political setup that will now become a place where you play, because you're entering into an arena which has been set and dominated by two political giants for so long. They have defined the rules of the game, has already been defined. You have to play by them. Will you?
Well, again, that's the reason why I'm contesting, Evans. The object is to break the system and rebuild them. I mean, it gets to a point where the systems you have, the policies you have, more or less become redundant and they don't work anymore. The structures that you have as a country or in a setup don't work, and you have to rebuild them.
So what is wrong with Ghana then? What is it that you want to break?
Well,
we've done this for 30 plus years, at least the Fourth Republic. Many will say, well, we've not had the same sort of instability that we had before 1992. And that alone is enough. The fact that I have freedom of speech, democracy is thriving, I can go home in peace, I can interview you as an aspiring independent candidate, and I don't have to worry that anybody's going to call me. That is enough. What's wrong with that system that you want to break down, tear it down, and build back better?
Of whom much is given, much is required. If we feel we have our peace, there's some sort of water coming through our taps, we have intermittent power, we're earning some sort of money, so we're making a living, then we've gotten it wrong. Let's compare ourselves to our even independent classmates like Singapore and all these other countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, these countries. These are countries that don't have a fraction of what we have, and yet they are first-class countries. Why? Because they had leadership that understands the problem and try to resolve the issues for their people. So if you're comparing ourselves and you're getting comfortable with an environment where there's no war, there's no issues like those, and that you cannot look or aim for the best, then I think that is wrong. We just have to see who are our competitors, who are we competing with, and looking at what we have as a country, oil, gold, diamonds, and all these resources, and looking at what they have in Malaysia, Singapore, for instance, was not even a country, was a nodal point. And now it's a first-class country with about 450 billion economy, and ours is about 70 billion. So clearly, we can't just be complicit and sit back and say, because we have our peace of mind, because we have these basic things as a country, we don't need to aim for the best. I totally disagree to that. And I feel that's the reason why people like us want to get on board. And loads of Ghanaian youth are home, coming out of the university with backlogs sitting at home. So if you're telling me you have your peace of mind and because the system is okay, then I have a challenge with that.
Yeah, but you cite Singapore, Malaysia. It isn't a broken record we've had for decades now. That we all started with them and they've gone by. That ship has sailed. I mean, I see a lot of people aspiring to bring about change, citing that. But yet, that does never translate into anything close to reality here in Ghana. Because the reality of Singapore and Malaysia are quite distinct. The circumstances and the context within which they develop, very distinct from our own realities, our realities currently. Isn't that what we need to face? And I guess the direct question to you is, what about Singapore and Malaysia that we keep mentioning, that you want to bring here, that will fit our current circumstance?
Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is, these people, although, as you said, have different circumstances, still had nothing, and they built something out of nothing. We have every resources as a nation, and yet we are taking our caps to the likes of World Bank and IMF to survive, even to support our budget. Are you saying that is right? Look, I believe that as a country, we need to have internal policies that would help to build local economy. We need to build a strong local economy, build policies that speak to our Ghanaian experience. Make sure that we keep resources and enrich our people. We are giving everything out as a nation. We talk about the resources and we are poor and we are content with it because Singapore is a different situation. No, we need to be able to sit there as a people, be selfless, think about our people, and find policies that would suit our economy and build an economy for Ghanaians so that we can accommodate our people and make sure their lifestyles have changed.
How do you plan to do this?
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, why do we create jobs? We have to process our resources. We can't keep exporting our raw materials.
But everybody says that. NDC says that. MPP says that. It is replete in their manifestos.
Absolutely. So that's what I said to you before, earlier on, that the systems we have in place makes it difficult for these people to get in the helms of affairs and do exactly as they have said. You have parties even borrowing when they are in opposition to fund their campaigns or to keep their parties afloat. You have individuals...
Are you saying you're not going to do that?
Absolutely
How
not.
are you going to run your campaign?
So, like I've explained to your colleague earlier on. I mean, I in my line of business, and again, as you know, I've been in the business world, we have social impact funds that goes into systems or environment that we can trust, feel credible. So if I have any good cause that is going to help to uplift the lifestyle of people, you have very charitable people that put it in and support the occasion. And that is the kind of structure I'm bringing in to fund my campaign. And basically that's what is going to get me out of going and depending on people who would come and dictate or direct policy when it doesn't help the people.
You mentioned that one of the things you want to do is, move to production, add some value, and not just export the raw material. And I mentioned to you, all the parties say that too, that they want to, that's why, in fact, this current government had introduced this one district, one factory as a way of adding value and producing so we can export. We've seen that policy, yes, has some great positives, but hasn't actually manifested in the exact fashion that the MPP actually anticipate. There have been significant challenges. How are you proposing to do this differently?
Evans, the government can't do it all. A government cannot keep establishing companies or taking businesses away from the private sector. If you talk about enabling environment for industries, it's not a government building factory. What you do is you create the environment that the private sector will be attracted to invest in that environment. We are talking about one district, one factory. What are the conditions that a business needs to establish? What do somebody need to set up a company? You need a land, you need money from the bank, you need a business plan reviewed and all of these. Have you even tried registering a piece of land in Ghana before? Have you seen the bureaucracy that you go through?
Government is facilitating a bit of that for those who have registered to implement and set up factories under the 1D1.
Why do I have to go to a government policy? It has to be an environment. I don't need government to set up my company. I don't need government to invest my business. It has to be an environment that attracts.
But government must be a facilitator.
Yeah, so you create the environment. I don't have to come and talk to you, go and help me get my, title out of Land Title Commission, or help a bank to give me funding for my project. No. A system has to be in place that is self on its own. That, for instance, what is happening in Little Luanda? Luanda hasn't got anything, but they got systems that work, and people believe in the systems, so they want to put their money in there. So these are the kind of structures that needs to effective and efficient government structures. It's totally lacking in this place. We need to have those in place, the right enabling environment, before you can start talking about these policies, or else it ends up as slogans that goes into the bin. We don't need slogans. We need real actions on the ground. We need to see these issues, policies being addressed, so that when somebody wants to establish a business, I don't need to know a government official. And again, these are the things leading to corruption and other things. I don't need to know anybody. I sit in my corner, whether it's in Wa or whether it's in Boko or whether it's somewhere in Kumasi. I go apply for my documents. I go to the bank, raise my money, business plans accepted, and I have my business going. If we are not able to create these self-working systems, and you have to rely on human power, whom you know There's no meritocracy in the system. Then we are still going around the circle. So let's try and change this. Let's create a system that works on its own, that don't require me to come to see Evans, but just get me to go.
But how do you create that? How do you create that system? What's your prescription?
Like I said, meritocracy. People have to take corruption out. Take all these things out. So it's a continuous work of creating systems that work and making sure that there's enforcement in all of these. Because again, they'll tell you, oh, the laws are there, the regulations are there, but how are they enforced? How do we see these things being implemented? So let's come together, see what we have as a nation, what is causing us from moving from A to B, identify these problems, and resolve it once and for all, devoid of person or party or party affiliation or tribe or anything. So these are the things that I'm saying. I am coming in as a change maker to create an environment and make sure that these systems are put in place that would attract itself, like I mentioned, Rwanda and other places.
But I wanted to crystallize for me, because a lot of what you've said, in all honesty, I've heard the NPP say too. They have introduced at least clear policies: one district, one factory, one village, one dam, etc. I mean, you may criticize it, but it is an attempt at fixing the problem. What is unique about your proposition? If it's not one district, one factory, so they propose they want to create a factory in every district. At least you see it. They attempt to do something about it. If you want to industrialize, what is your specific approach to industrialization if it's not having it in every district? I want you to nail it down for me.
Brilliant. What I'm saying, Evans, is the building of factories or the industrialization would not be started from by a government. What a government needs to do is lay down an enabling environment.
That we know, that that's what government must do. Create but what would Dr. Sam Ankra do in creating that enabling environment?
What would I do in
Yeah, what would you do specifically to create that enabling environment?
Well, I mean, what do we need? If it's a land that needs to be made, and the land title has to have a specific period of getting the title out. It's not because a government wrote to support my business, so you have to do it quicker. There has to be a process which has to be traced in real time, that this is what is happening. If there's an issue with land tenures, where different people are coming in at different times to take ownership. I mean, you can have a land today, in the next two years, somebody else has taken ownership. The court has made the ruling and it's gone to somebody else. And you are there, they are coming to rake your property down. So these are the things that needs to be sorted out. Proper legal framework, proper government structures, continuous fight against corruption, and then you can be able to create an environment that would attract this business. The investments obviously would not, most of them would not become locally. But once the systems are in place, as I've just mentioned, it attracts the investment to come into the country. And that's what you can talk about having industrialization. It's not a slogan or an idea that you want to build a factory somewhere and because it's government involved, you can obtain those things. But what about if you want to do yours and you don't have government access to government?
You've talked about slogans. You seem to have an aversion to slogans, correct? You don't think slogans are the way to go?
Well, not necessarily that I have a aversion to slogans. I believe in action. I believe in real and tangible things on the ground.
But you have a slogan too. The second independence.
Right.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough. Second independence.
That is a slogan. What in God's name is second independence?
Well, the second independence is we've had enough of this Fourth Republic, NDC, MPP, and no results. Our people are hungry. A lot of Ghanaians I talk to don't have work to do. If you go on the streets, people are paying so much taxes. Businesses are folding on a daily basis. Big corporations are taxed and taxed and taxed again. Basically, there's serious economic challenge in the system. And I believe that this status quo, this cannot continue. We can't have a neo-colonialist system where certain people go into power, enrich themselves and their immediate families at the expense of all. This cannot continue. So we are calling for a second independence to have a proper government that will come for Ghanaians and work for Ghanaians.
Okay, so this second independence, for you, the definition and what it looks like when you envision the second independence, it looks like a place where Ghanaians are no longer poor?
Absolutely. That's your objective.
You want to eradicate poverty.
Eradicate poverty, totally, completely.
Yeah, but that is utopian. You can't simply eradicate poverty in a country that has been poor for more than 60-something years and is still very, very poor. We've only moved into a lower middle income status fairly recently in the last decade.
China started in this way. They were a very poor country, I mentioned. And then they might, as you see now, China is moving to a first world country. I've mentioned Norway after the Second World War, and even Europe in general after the Second World War was a very poor area. But then, due to leadership, good policies being put in place, they'll be able to eradicate poverty. Similarly, if Ghana, if you and I decide to go in a direction where we feel the current status quo has failed us and we have to look for option, we have to break the system and rebuild again by having the right structures that do not just favor a section of people, but everybody else, then we are heading towards the right direction. Having our constitution amended, first of all, to be able to make sure that, again, not different tiers of people are paying in different salaries. You're talking about Article 71 for certain, category of people.
What would you do that?
You're talking about a single spine. I mean, come on, there has to be a one framework income structure for all.
You're going to scrap Article 75?
Scrap it up totally.
From the Constitution?
Yeah, absolutely. And make sure there's a structure for everybody. There's not even a distribution of income in this country. Some people there's so much income discrepancy. And again, because of corruption. Corruption has exhibited income inequality, and people are so rich, people are so poor. We need to cut this off. Ghanaians need to benefit from the system as well. It's not just a fraction of the people that come in and benefit. We have to create policies and systems that, regardless of people's birth, regardless of their tribe, regardless of the area they were born, regardless of who they are, should still benefit from the system, just as what others people are doing. And that's what we stand for. That's what Samankra is looking to do for this nation.
So that is the second independence. So the second independence is independence from NDC and MPP?
Absolutely.
Whereas the first independence was independent from colonialism?
Yes. So this is the neo-colonialism we're trying to get rid of.
Colonialism imposed by the NDC and MPP?
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, so you say at the beginning that you're part of your work coming into the decision to run for president is you were also advising politicians in the background?
Yeah, advising politicians in the background. In fact, I've even taken the Parliament Finance Committee to a training camp somewhere else for a few days and take them through financial products and programs. I have been advised and I've done my part too. But then again, you cannot influence change until you are the decision maker, from what I've seen.
Yeah, but if you're an advisor to the politicians, then you possibly have to bear part of the responsibility of where we currently are, because they possibly are implementing your advice.
No. Like I said, if those were taken, if that position had worked, I probably would not even be attracted to put myself on the line as I'm doing now. Behind the scenes, nothing has worked. You say one thing and is influenced by the other because of self-interest, because of players on hidden hands, accomplices that make decisions even on behalf of our governments. So these are things that I'm standing for, and I'm making sure that once I have the opportunity, we'll block up and make sure that transparent, accountable government is put in place and the systems and the structures are working for all.
I want to take a quick break. When I return, I would look at we're in a current economic crisis, an economic crisis that we haven't seen in a generation. He must certainly have a view on this current economic crisis, and he's hoping that he would be voted for as an independent candidate. But the question really is Ghana ready for an independent candidate? Many before him have tried and have failed. So why does he believe that he will be different? Has he assessed yet the Ghanaians' appetite for an independent candidate? Stay with me after this. And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. And it's always brought to you by Cherry Tree Properties. We develop spaces as though we were going to occupy them ourselves. Syntex tanks, it is strong, it is tough. Alobo bitters experience greatness in every moment, and Ghana AIDS Commission. And Syntex tank is a tank that I use. You should try it as well because it is strong, it is tough. No matter your water needs, it has it all. It is a first to introduce a double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. It is a first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. We now also introduce to you the customer specs order, which lets you order any color and size of preference. Syntex tank gives you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. So whatever your water consumption, size of project or demand, choose Syntex tank. We have agents nationwide. 0244 335 168 is the number to call. 0244 335 168, or simply shop online at syntexgh.com. They make it very easy. You no longer have to go into shop to buy a tank to store your water. Simply go onto the website, click a few buttons, and you'll be quickly sorted out. Are you strong, are you tough? And then talking about homes, I have always recommended to you the Cherry Tree Properties, because I'm pretty sure you know that desires are wishes. Beauty is just a promise, but passion, it is everything. So if you're thinking about buying a home, you have to talk to those who build with passion. Sloane Square is a new gated community development at Sakumono, developed by Cherry Tree Properties, a one-of-a-kind, well-planned luxury you've never experienced. Call them on 0553 662 366, 0553 662 366. Cherry Tree Properties, sophistication and class. With me in the studio is Dr. Samankra, who is obviously vying to be a presidential material for this country. Indeed, next year he wants to go to the Electoral Commission, put himself up and get on the ballot for you possibly to vote for him. I'll come to whether or not the Ghanaian population electorate is ready to vote for an independent candidate. But the Ghanaian is currently facing economic crisis of historic proportions, the worst we've experienced in a generation. 2 days ago, the finance minister was in Parliament and delivered the mid-year budget review in an attempt to get us out of this current crisis. And he said that we've turned the corner. What's your own view of where we are right now? And are you convinced that we've actually turned the corner?
Evans, first of all, how did we get here? It started from the previous administration, where we entered into this power or energy crisis, where factories were not operating, companies were not being able to have power to function. And out of that panic and severity of the situation, the leader got himself into few of these power purchase agreements, again, which were not favorable to the country. A lot of money were being paid out of it. Then we entered into the banking crisis at the time. They thought the banks were not capitalized. Again, they went out there, borrowed money to sustain the banks. And again, that did not work. So much money loaned. As you can see, some of these people are even still in court, and we're fighting on these cases. Fast forward, there's an election. NPP take over a government with the physical space almost taken. Now, this is the challenge that I've been talking to you about. If indeed is a government that looks to help build a fundamental for an economy, the first point of call for NPP government was, how do we cut costs totally and make sure that we take the people through austerity to bring back, create space in our physical space. But because as a party, they've stayed in opposition for long, spent so much money, borrowed money, maybe, they had to look for ways of making money. So they also got in, and what happens? Borrowing spree. Take it, free this, free that, free this, free that. And all these were costs. Unfortunately for them, we got ourselves into COVID and Ukraine war. So if you look at the history, it's because we don't have a consistent style of governance, or there's no robust economic policies that guide or bind us to do things. And because we're changing government, and each one of these governments have their own agenda and plans, the interest is not for Ghanaians, but it's for what they as a people benefit out of. Because if so, indeed, the interest was to build the Ghanaian economy, NPP government should not go into a spending spree when they take over the government. They should have looked for ways and means to stabilize the economy, create physical space before they get on the spree.
But before COVID struck, the economic indicators were all inching up. We're experiencing an uptick. Growth was on a sustainable path. Inflation was within control. That is what they were doing in the first few years before COVID struck.
But then again, as I said to you, yes, those marginal increases, those marginal growth is not what an economy like Ghana needs. So if you are looking to build an economy, a developing economy, those are not the targets of this marginal growth. But because we see a little growth here and there, we go on a spending spree. And that is why when COVID happens, our whole economy has been in shambles. And now Ghanaians are going through some of the harshest periods in their lives.
Do you discount the COVID and the Ukraine war impact on this economy?
I am not discounting it. But what I'm saying is if we had built a proper economy, if the focus has been to build a fundamental stable economy for a country, but not for a benefit of parties, then we wouldn't have gotten this in that severity. Yes, everybody else felt COVID. I mean, we all understand the challenges that everybody went through, but the severity of the situation in Ghana is unbearable. All because we have parties that comes in with their own agendas and policies, which hasn't got any long binding process. So they do their little bit to see what benefits them and their immediate people, and at the expense of the large populace. So this is the challenge that I'm fighting against.
So what is your alternative then to this crisis? You are hoping that you get elected as a first independent candidate to ever get a shot at a seat. If that happens, in January of 2025, you will face an economic crisis on your hands. How are you turning it around?
Brilliant. I mean, first of all, we need to offload the burden on our upfront payments. I think the loans and the facilities that we're taking now, there's too much being paid upfront. We would lessen the burden and spread it over a longer period. This is going to be serious negotiations.
But that's what we're doing. But that's what government have done with the domestic debt exchange. They are now approaching the external creditors to again negotiate. This is the only reason why the IMF considered that, because we had done some form of restructuring, extended the payment, giving people haircuts.
So we will do it furthermore deeper to make sure that the burden now will be lessened. And all these...
But that's already been done, Dr. Samankra.
Well,
the government is already restructuring our debt.
The burden that
they reduced the burden.
The burden has been done, but then obviously the people have been affected more than the international debts that we're in. So we will go back into the international market. We understand the situation, but we're looking for more lessened upfront payments so that we can spread the payments and give us a free period. Over and above that, the freebies needs to be looked into. For instance, free education. Look at the budget that we pay.
What are you doing with that free education?
I think, first of all, it has to be means tested. And by so doing, you are even helping to bring the informal sector to the formal sector, where people have to file a one-page form to fill up their details to make sure that they are receiving enough money or they are paying the right taxes to be qualified for it. And secondly, I said it, we need to offload our high-end schools. Schools like Opokuwari, Prempeh College, Achimota, Adisadel College, all these schools need to be offloaded to the old boys and anybody else who's interested to, buy into it.
Let them offloaded, what you mean? They will run the schools?
Yes, they will run the schools. I mean, yes, put it there. Just put it there and let them buy shares into it. And then they will run the schools.
Flow the schools on the stock exchange?
You should flow the school on the stock exchange, absolutely.
So Adisadel on the stock exchange?
Yeah.
Run a business?
Well, I mean, there's nowhere in the world where you go to boarding school for free. Let's be real here. So if you want to maintain the novelty of these schools, because right now it's free and it's not quality. The quality goes down every day. So what I'm saying is,
how does that even work to put a school on a stock exchange?
Already the old students are more or less managing certain aspects of the school.
But seriously, do you mean putting the Adisadel on a stock exchange?
Absolutely. We offload it to the old boys. I mean, whether it's to the stock exchange or sell shares to the old boy association or individually.
But the school is not a business entity. And so how do you even say shares? That whole structure doesn't exist at all. You're completely different from anything akin to shares that you can even buy.
What it is it's not going to be fully profit. Government would not take their interest out of it entirely. Government still maintain interest to keep it that way. But what I'm saying is, for us to maintain the quality, we don't have the means as a country to pump money into these schools. So offload it to private sector, offload it to the people that have the passion, the love for them to be able to take care of it, and then government now can take off the burden, have funds to do other things. Because right now,
but I thought you said you are for the people. If that's what happens, then you are actually pricing out a significant part of the population.
Absolutely
because
not.
That then becomes a school for those who can afford.
Well,
it ceases to be a right.
This is exactly what I'm saying. So now that you've been able to do that, you have to build community schools for free for the community people. For day schools, this can be done. And once you've raised money from offloading some of these schools, and you are not putting money continuously to maintain the schools, and you have resources available, you can have very decent community schools for totally free for people who have been means tested to go and enjoy. But to have a freebie and put so much part of our budget into it when the country doesn't have money, you have a problem. Then again, we have to look at how we are collecting our taxes and what we're using the taxes for. Again, as to why we're sitting here 2023 and we are sending tax officers to premises to check how many bottles of cans of Coke and stuff are being produced in production line, it beats my imagination. We have to digitize a system. Everywhere in the world, production lines have encrypted code systems in there, not banderols.
They've done that now.
No, they haven't.
The tax collection infrastructure now is highly digitized.
Listen, we're still using banderols for imported items. Now, if the thing can be physically seen and is visible, it can be copied.
Let me ask you, because we just have to wrap up, that fundamentally Ghanaians must be prepared to vote for you. I put it to you, the Ghanaians aren't simply ready to vote for an independent candidate.
It's not a question of whether Ghanaians are ready for an independent candidate or not. The situation demands for it. It gets to a point in time where systems that you set up becomes dysfunctional because of what is happening around you externally. Similarly, the structures that we have now has run to its courts. If we don't cause for this change now, it's going to be painful even later.
So who is calling for the change? You?
I am calling for the change.
Yeah, but Ghanaians aren't ready, even if they want change, to hand this country to an independent candidate. You accept that?
I don't.
You must have done your research
Absolutely.
Before you decided to go. And what did the research tell you? That Ghanaians are ready to vote for an independent candidate? 9
out of 10 people are tired of voting for MPP NDC. They want an option. They want something that would give them ownership to governance.
9 out of 10. How'd you come to that conclusion?
Absolutely. I mean, you can do it right here. The statistics in the office here. Ask all the people.
But that will not go close to anything that will be scientific.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you ask them, they are sick and tired of voting for MPP NDC.
They may be, but they haven't historically seen any other party or individual as a credible alternative.
Because we haven't presented a credible alternative to them. And that is what I present to Ghanaians, that when Ghanaians see our policies that we're going to roll out on the 21st of September, when they see the robust and the radical approach we intend to govern this nation and bring them from wherever they are into prosperity, they will be looking at us seriously and they will take note of us. But like I said, it's not whether Ghanaians want an independent candidate or not. It's gotten to a point in our life history as a country that we need to have this change. The change that will be very painful for others, but it's so needed to be able to shape.
And just before we wrap up, many before you, when they try, either the two main parties have co-opted them into their fold or somehow just get them to just let go. Do you anticipate that will happen to you? Are you well aware of that?
I'm very much aware of it. Am I going to? No. I'm running a different campaign altogether. What I intend to do is entirely different from what MPP and NDC status quo means to Ghanaians. I am ending the status quo. I'm going to cause a distraction to whatever we've seen in our country. There's going to be radical change from A to Z, where the people are going to own governance. We're going to have the entire nation as our pool of resources and talent to pick, not party colors or symbols.
Dr. Samankra, thank you very much for joining us. And that's Dr. Samankra. He's an economist, and I'm grateful that you joined us with your thoughts on this. We'll see what happens with your campaign going forward.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.